If you want to understand what someone truly thinks, feels, and values, you don't need magic. You need the right questions. Let me show you 5 powerful questions that uncover the heart, the motives, and the unspoken truths of anyone you meet. Fear is not just an emotion. It is a map of the human soul. When you ask someone, what do you fear the most? You are asking them to reveal the borders of their inner world, the invisible walls that keep them from stepping fully into their potential. Most people think of fear in shallow terms, spiders, heights, or darkness, but the truth is, our deepest fears are never about things outside of us. They are about the stories we tell ourselves inside, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of being left behind, the fear of loving and not being loved back, the fear of failure that whispers you'll never recover if you try and lose. Fear always hides in the background of our choices. It dictates how close we allow others to come. It decides whether we take risks or stay safe. It explains why some people settle for less while others sabotage themselves just before success arrives. When someone tells you their fear, they are not only showing you their wound, but also their longing. For example, if someone says, I fear being alone, what they're truly saying is, I deeply long for connection. If they say, I fear failure, what they long for is affirmation and the freedom to try without shame. Fear is the shadow that reveals the shape of our deepest desires. The reason this question is so powerful is because fear is universal. No matter how confident someone appears, everyone is afraid of something. And when they trust you enough to reveal that fear, you're no longer just hearing their words, you're reading their mind, you're understanding the script that runs silently behind their decisions every single day. But here's the key. You must receive their answer without judgment. If you respond with shame, mockery, or disbelief, they will retreat and never open that door again. To truly read a person through this question, you must hold their fear gently with compassion, because in that moment, they are showing you the most fragile part of their humanity. So when you ask, what do you fear the most? Don't rush the silence that follows. Lean into it. Let them gather the courage to name what they've hidden. And when they finally do, you will glimpse not just their fear, but their heart. If fear reveals what a person runs from, desire reveals what they are running toward. Asking someone, what do you want most in life right now, is like handing them a mirror and inviting them to see the truth they often keep hidden, even from themselves. Most people live busy lives, chasing deadlines, responsibilities, and endless distractions. But when you slow them down and pose this question, you cut through the noise. You invite them to reflect on their deepest longing, not the script they present to the world. The answer may surprise you. Some will say they want peace because chaos has ruled their lives for too long. Others may say they want love because loneliness has carved a hollow space inside of them. Some will admit they want success, not because of money or recognition, but because they are still trying to prove to themselves and perhaps to someone from their past that they are worthy. This question is powerful because it exposes alignment or misalignment. If someone says they want joy, but their daily habits are rooted in negativity, you can see the silent war within them. If they say they want freedom, yet live chained to approval from others, you can read the invisible conflict between their desire and their reality. What a person wants most is often the very thing they feel least capable of reaching, and in that gap lies the story of their life. Desire is also a compass. When someone shares what they want most, you are not just hearing a dream, you are seeing their direction. A person's want is a roadmap showing you what drives their choices, what sacrifices they are willing to make, and what disappointments have shaped them. This is how you begin to read their inner world, not through assumptions, but through listening to the language of longing. But here's the deeper truth. Most people are afraid to answer this question honestly. Why? Because admitting what you want most makes you vulnerable. It opens the possibility of disappointment. It risks being misunderstood or worse, judged. That's why this question is sacred. If someone trusts you enough to reveal their deepest desire, they are giving you a window into their soul. So when you ask, what do you want most in life right now? Don't listen with impatience or curiosity alone. Listen with empathy. Notice what they don't say. Notice the tremble in their voice, the hesitation, the way they search for words. Those small pauses often reveal more than the answer itself. Ultimately, this question does more than read someone's mind. It reveals their heart. It shows you not just where they are, but where they hope to go. And if you can understand someone's deepest desire, you can understand the choices they've made, the risks they will take, and the limits they will break in pursuit of it. This question is not as simple as it looks. On the surface, it might sound casual, like a small talk conversation starter. But in truth, who do you admire most and why is one of the most revealing questions you can ever ask someone. Here's why. The people we admire are reflections of the qualities we value or the qualities we secretly wish we possessed. Admiration is projection. When someone tells you who inspires them, they are indirectly telling you what they crave, what they long for, and what they feel is missing within themselves. If a person says they admire a leader known for courage, it's often because they themselves struggle with fear, and courage represents the life they want to live. If they say they admire someone for their generosity, it could mean they long for a world that feels kinder than the one they've experienced. And if they admire someone for their success, it's usually not about money or status. It's about validation, the unspoken desire to be seen and respected. The why part of this question is where the gold lies, because admiration alone is not enough. It's the reason behind it that uncovers the truth. For example, one person might admire a famous figure because of their wealth, but another might admire the very same figure because of the sacrifices they overcame to get there. The why reveals the lens through which they see life, and that lens tells you more about their mindset than any direct confession ever could. Another important truth, admiration also reveals values. If someone admires creativity, they value innovation. If they admire discipline, they value structure. If they admire kindness, they value relationships. By asking this question, you're not just learning about who they look up to. You're uncovering the principles that guide their decisions, the unspoken code that shapes their behavior. But here's where it goes even deeper. Admiration often reveals unhealed wounds. Someone who admires strength might do so because they have felt powerless. Someone who admires loyalty may have been betrayed. Someone who admires love may have lived too long in loneliness. What they admire tells you what they ache for. What they celebrate in others often points to what they desperately want for themselves. When you ask, who do you admire most and why? You are reading the script of their hidden desires. You are seeing the portrait of the person they want to become. And sometimes you are seeing the outline of their regrets, the person they wish they had been but feel they've fallen short of. The key is to listen without judgment. Don't dismiss their answer as superficial, even if it seems that way. If they admire someone for fame or beauty, there's a reason beneath that surface. Maybe they grew up invisible, overlooked, or unseen. If they admire power, perhaps they once lived powerless. If they admire compassion, perhaps they lived without it. Every answer has roots. So, the next time you ask, who do you admire most and why? Don't just take the name they give you. Dig into the why, because hidden inside that why is the story of who they are, who they were, and who they are striving to become. This is not an easy question to ask, and it is certainly not an easy question to answer. When you ask someone what memory still haunts you, you are inviting them to open a door they may have kept locked for years. But behind that door lies one of the most powerful insights into the human mind. Our memories shape us far more than we realize, especially the painful ones. A haunting memory is not just a flash of the past. It is a wound that never fully healed. It is the lens through which a person interprets the present. When someone tells you about the memory that still lingers in their heart, they are revealing the script that quietly governs their fears, their choices, and even their relationships. Think about it. A person who was abandoned as a child may still fear abandonment in adulthood, and that fear could make them cling too tightly or push people away before they can leave. A person who failed publicly may still carry the shame of that failure, and so they avoid risks, even when opportunities are right in front of them. A person who was betrayed may have trouble trusting, no matter how trustworthy their current relationships are. The haunting memory is not just an event, it is a pattern that echoes across their life. What makes this question so powerful is that it forces people to connect the dots between their past and their present. They may never have said it out loud, but when they do, you suddenly see the connection between who they were and who they've become. You begin to understand not just their actions, but the why behind them. But this question must be handled with extreme care. To ask someone about their haunting memory is to step onto sacred ground. You are asking them to hand you a piece of their brokenness. If you handle it carelessly, by dismissing, judging, or rushing them, you risk shutting that door forever. But if you hold space for them, listen deeply, and honor the courage it takes to share, you will learn more about their heart than years of casual conversation could ever reveal. Here's the deeper truth. What haunts us also defines what heals us. If someone tells you they are haunted by a memory of betrayal, what they are really craving is loyalty and trust. If they are haunted by failure, what they long for is redemption and another chance. If they are haunted by loss, what they long for is love that lasts. The haunting memory is not just about pain, it's also about the hidden longing for restoration. When you ask what memory still haunts you, you are not only reading their mind, you are stepping into the rawest, most vulnerable chapter of their story. And sometimes by simply listening, you give them the one thing they've needed all along, the courage to face it, name it, and begin to let it go. This question may sound simple, but it is one of the most profound ways to understand a person's mind. When you ask, what does success mean to you, you are not just asking about their goals. You are uncovering the very framework by which they measure the worth of their life. Here's the truth. Success is not universal. For one person, it is wealth. For another, it is freedom. For someone else, it is peace, love, or even just survival. Success is not about the destination, it is about the definition. And once you know how someone defines success, you can predict not only their choices, but also their sacrifices, because people will always chase what they believe matters most. Think about it. If someone defines success as financial stability, they will work endlessly, sacrifice time, and endure pressure to achieve that goal. If they define success as love, their energy will be poured into relationships, even at the cost of personal ambitions. If they define success as freedom, they will resist anything that feels like control, even if it looks good on the outside. This question is powerful because it reveals the hidden scoreboard of a person's life. Everyone keeps score, but not everyone admits it. Some measure their life in achievements, some measure it in relationships, some measure it in how much impact they make in the world. And here's the key. Once you know someone's scoreboard, you know what keeps them awake at night, what brings them joy, and what fills them with regret. But the why behind their definition of success is just as important as the definition at sea. For example, if someone says success means having a big house, don't dismiss it as materialism. Ask why. Maybe they grew up poor and the house represents safety. If someone says success means being famous, don't assume it's vanity. Maybe they grew up invisible and fame feels like finally being seen. Every definition of success has a story behind it, and that story reveals the unspoken needs of the heart. The danger is that many people inherit their definition of success instead of creating it for themselves. Society tells them it's wealth, status, or recognition, and they spend years chasing something that doesn't even satisfy their soul. When you ask this question, you can quickly see whether their definition of success is authentic or borrowed, and that insight tells you whether they are truly fulfilled or silently empty. This is why listening matters. When you ask, what does success mean to you? Pay attention not just to the answer, but to the emotion behind it. Do they light up with passion? Do they hesitate as if unsure? Do they answer with confidence? Or do they seem to be reciting something they've been told? The way they respond tells you as much as the words themselves. At its deepest level, this question doesn't just read someone's mind, it reveals their destiny. Because the way they define success will guide the road they take, the risks they accept, and the limits they place on themselves. And if you listen closely, you will see not just what they want, but who they are becoming. When most people think about communication, they think about words. But words are only the surface. The real truth of a person's mind and heart is often found in what is left unsaid, in the pauses, the tone, the shifts in body language, and the silence between sentences. That is why, if you want to truly read someone's mind, you must learn the art of listening beyond words. Think about it. How many times has someone said, "I'm fine," when everything about their voice, their eyes, and their posture screamed the opposite? How many times has someone told you it doesn't matter when clearly it mattered deeply? The words were small, but the truth was written in the tension behind them. Listening beyond words means paying attention to the signals that reveal the inner world, even when the outer world pretends to hide it. This type of listening requires patience. Most of us are not truly listening. We are waiting for our turn to respond. But to read a person, you cannot listen with your mouth. You must listen with your heart. You must silence your own need to be heard and lean fully into their presence. Sometimes the pause before an answer tells you more than the answer itself. Sometimes a trembling voice speaks louder than polished sentences. Listening beyond words is also about noticing contradictions. When someone's words say one thing but their emotions reveal another, the truth is often hidden in the gap. For example, a person might say they don't care about success, but every story they tell reveals their hunger for recognition. They might say they've forgiven, but their tone still carries bitterness. They might claim they are confident, but their body language whispers insecurity. To read a person is to notice when the pieces don't align. This is why presence is so powerful. When you are fully present, you catch the small details, the way someone avoids eye contact, act when talking about certain topics, the way their breathing shifts, the hesitation before they share something vulnerable. These are not accidents, they are clues. And the more you notice them, the clearer their unspoken truth becomes. But here's the most important part. Listening beyond words is not about catching someone in a lie. It's about compassion. It's about understanding that sometimes people cannot fully say what they mean because of fear, shame, or lack of trust. When you listen deeply, without interrupting, without judging, you create safety. And in that safety, people often reveal more than they intended because they finally feel heard. So if you want to read someone's mind, do not only focus on what they say. Focus on how they say it. Focus on what they leave out. Focus on what their silence is screaming. Because sometimes the loudest truth is not in their words, it is in their silence. If you truly want to read someone's mind, you must understand this principle. People only reveal themselves when they feel safe. And nothing creates safety faster than vulnerability. Vulnerability is the invitation that tells someone it's okay to be real here. It's okay to put down the mask. Think about it. We live in a world where most people are performing. They perform strength so no one sees their weakness. They perform confidence so no one suspects their insecurities. They perform happiness so no one notices their pain. When you ask someone a deep question like, what do you fear or what do you want most in life, they will only answer truthfully if they feel they won't be shamed, ridiculed, or rejected for their answer. That atmosphere of trust does not happen by accident. It happens when you go first. When you share your own vulnerability, your mistakes, your fears, your longings, you give the other person permission to do the same. Vulnerability unlocks honesty because it removes the power imbalance. It says, I am human too. I have fallen too. I don't have it all together either. And suddenly walls begin to crumble. People who have spent years hiding begin to open up. This is where the magic happens. A guarded person will give you rehearsed answers. They will say what they think you want to hear. But a vulnerable person speaking to another vulnerable person will give you their truth. They will reveal the thoughts they normally silence, the dreams they normally bury, the pain they normally deny. Vulnerability is the key that unlocks the deepest layers of honesty. And here's the beautiful paradox. Vulnerability feels like weakness, but it is actually strength. It takes far more courage to admit, I don't have it all figured out, than to pretend you do. It takes more strength to say I'm scared than to hide behind a mask of bravery. When you model this kind of courage, people mirror it back. That's how you read their mind, not through manipulation, but through mutual courage. But vulnerability must be treated with care. If someone dares to be vulnerable with you and you respond with judgment, sarcasm, or indifference, they will retreat deeper into their shell than ever before. Trust, once broken, is not easily repaired. But if you receive their vulnerability with empathy, with listening, gentleness, and respect, you will find that people will share more than you even asked for. So remember this, when you ask someone a deep question, don't just demand honesty. Create the conditions where honesty feels safe. Show them that their truth will not scare you, that their weakness will not make you love them less, and that their pain will not push you away. Because feel that kind of safety, their honesty will flow freely. And in that honesty, you don't just read their mind, you see their soul. When people hear the phrase reading someone's mind, they often imagine manipulation, using someone's secrets as leverage, trying to bend them to your will, or controlling the outcome of their choices. But that is not what true mind reading is about. The purpose of asking these 5 questions is not to gain power over people, but to understand them on a deeper level. At its core, every human being longs to be understood. We all want someone to see us, not the mask we wear, not the version of ourselves we perform for the world, but the real us, with all our fears, desires, wounds, and hopes. When you ask these questions with compassion, you are telling someone, I want to know who you really are. I want to see you, not just your surface. That is not control, that is connection. Control destroys relationships, but understanding builds them. If you try to control someone, they will resist, rebel, or withdraw. But when you seek to understand, you create space for trust. And trust is the soil where honesty grows. Think about it this way. If someone tells you their definition of success, their deepest fear, or the memory that still haunts them, you now hold something sacred. What you do with that truth determines the depth of your relationship. If you exploit it, you become dangerous. If you honor it, you become safe. And when people feel safe with you, they open more doors to their inner world, doors they would never open for anyone who seeks to control them. When you share your own vulnerability, your mistakes, your fears, your longings, you give the other person permission to do the same. Vulnerability unlocks honesty because it removes the power imbalance. It says, I am human too. I have fallen too. I don't have it all together either. And suddenly walls begin to crumble. People who have spent years hiding begin to open up. This is where the magic happens. A guarded person will give you rehearsed answers. They will say what they think you want to hear. But a vulnerable person speaking to another vulnerable person will give you their truth. They will reveal the thoughts they normally silence, the dreams they normally bury, the pain they normally deny. Vulnerability is the key that unlocks the deepest layers of honesty. And here's the beautiful paradox. Vulnerability feels like weakness, but it is actually strength. It takes far more courage to admit, I don't have it all figured out, than to pretend you do. It takes more strength to say I'm scared than to hide behind a mask of bravery. When you model this kind of courage, people mirror it back. That's how you read their mind, not through manipulation, but through mutual courage. But vulnerability must be treated with care. If someone dares to be vulnerable with you and you respond with judgment, sarcasm, or indifference, they will retreat deeper into their shell than ever before. Trust, once broken, is not easily repaired. But if you receive their vulnerability with empathy, with listening, gentleness, and respect, you will find that people will share more than you even asked for. So remember this, when you ask someone a deep question, don't just demand honesty. Create the conditions where honesty feels safe. Show them that their truth will not scare you, that their weakness will not make you love them less, and that their pain will not push you away. Because feel that kind of safety, their honesty will flow freely. And in that honesty, you don't just read their mind, you see their soul. When people hear the phrase reading someone's mind, they often imagine manipulation, using someone's secrets as leverage, trying to bend them to your will, or controlling the outcome of their choices. But that is not what true mind reading is about. The purpose of asking these 5 questions is not to gain power over people, but to understand them on a deeper level. At its core, every human being longs to be understood. We all want someone to see us, not the mask we wear, not the version of ourselves we perform for the world, but the real us, with all our fears, desires, wounds, and hopes. When you ask these questions with compassion,